Hello and welcome to the Reimagine Jobs Spotlight on Renewable Energy. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Gina Johnson, Director of Programs at the nonprofit Sustainable Pittsburgh, and I'm so pleased to join our partners with Reimagine Jobs this evening to moderate our discussion with three leaders who are advancing renewable energy in our region. Tonight's program is part of the Reimagine Jobs Showcase, which is a website that launched in September at reimaginejobs.org. The website's goal is to highlight sustainable economic development initiatives and job opportunities in southwestern Pennsylvania. It features local businesses and organizations in 9 sectors of sustainable economic development. Tonight's program on renewable energy is the second in a series of programs designed to deep dive into each of the 9 sectors. We encourage you to take a look at the website and explore the exhibitors and opportunities listed. Now tonight, we're excited to feature presentations by Ron Godovic of Winstax Energy, Mel Kohlberg of Rye Development, and Greg Winks of Soulbridge Energy Advisors. These panelists will highlight their work to bring jobs to our community, along with ways in which the renewables industries can grow in our region. We'll have the opportunity following these presentations for general Q&A, so I hope you'll use the chat to pose questions for the panelists. We have a great, robust discussion. After this general Q&A, you'll have the opportunity for a deeper discussion and networking in the breakouts. Each of these breakouts will have one of our panelists, and you can select to be part of the wind, hydro, or solar power breakout for more focused, informal conversations about that topic. Now, to kick it off, I'm really excited that we have Dr. Ron Godovic. Ron is the founder and CEO of Winstax Energy, a full-service developer of renewable energy solutions based in Pittsburgh. The company manufactures and installs the largest vertical wind turbines in the United States. Considered a pioneer in microgrids, Winstax is changing industry's perspective of energy as a commodity to energy as an opportunity. I was privileged to work with Ron when he was the inaugural co-chair of CEOs for Sustainability, the executive network hosted by Sustainable Pittsburgh. Ron is the former executive director of the Institute for the Study of Information Technology and Society and adjunct faculty at CMU. He's considered an agent of change, and has appeared as a visiting scientist on Discovery Network's Mythbusters series. In recent years, Ron was awarded the Pittsburgh Mayor's Award for Public Art for illuminating the Rachel Carson Bridge with wind energy. And Ron is a serial entrepreneur who has helped to launch companies in industries as varied as energy, consumer products, and information technology. We're really happy to have you, Ron.
Well, thank you very much, Gina. It's really a pleasure to be here. Great. Well, good evening, and thank you so much for joining us tonight, and Deborah and others. Thank you. It's really nice to play some role in the Reimagine Jobs initiative here. We're a company based in Pittsburgh where we started about 10 years ago, installing renewable energy systems, primarily based on our wind turbine design. We began manufacturing in Pittsburgh and quickly developed the company to not only have manufacturing jobs, but also construction, engineering related projects. So we're really where we are today as a full service renewable energy company, in addition to manufacturing our wind turbines. As Gina mentioned, we manufacture the largest vertical wind turbines in the United States. So we have projects as far away as California, and primarily in the Ohio Valley, Pittsburgh region, Virginia, and places like that. So we've done some projects for the Navy and others. But, I'd like to take my couple of minutes. I think it would be useful to give you a real example of what really the face of new energy is going to be like, especially what's happened recently in Texas, and the issues of our energy grid and renewable energy and what role it plays with traditional energy. So if I could share my screen, let's see if this works. Yes, so I assume you can see that. So I'm just going to go through this quickly. So we've done a couple of freight terminals with renewable energy using both wind and solar and battery storage. And one I'm going to talk about tonight is in Cleveland, Parma, Ohio. And at this facility, This is a Pitt, Ohio trucking terminal. I'm sure you all, if you're from the Pittsburgh area, are familiar with Pitt, Ohio, major trucking company, logistics company based here in Pittsburgh. But this is the entrance to their new terminal in Cleveland. It features right at the entrance 8 of our 60-foot vertical wind turbines. This is all of Pitt, Ohio's trucking terminals are considered LEED gold trucking terminals, particularly their newer terminals. So this is another terminal we did for them in Pittsburgh with renewable energy as well. This project in Cleveland is much larger than that. So this is an aerial view of the building. It's 111,000 square foot terminal. It's 48,000 square foot. It consists of a shop, office, and 28,000 square foot of warehouse. This is on about a 30-acre site. It was formerly a General Motors plant, but Pitt, Ohio purchased it and built their own building. And we were lucky enough to be involved with that from the very beginning. So if you look closely, you can see solar panels on the roof, and to the right at the bottom of the screen, you'll see the entrance with the wind turbines. But what's important is the customer, Pitt, Ohio here, recognized how important green energy was. So the building itself is designed to optimize renewable energy, both wind and solar, in the direction the building faces. So let me see if I can get to the next one. So I'm going to go back. So how we work in the energy business that we're doing is called prosumption, where the philosophy is you generate, store, and then consume as much power on site as you can. So in this somewhat complex graph, this shows over a period of a day how the grid is used to offset shortfalls in renewable energy, how solar peaks during the day, wind peaks at night, depending on the season, and the consumption cycle all works out that this facility, most of the time, is completely off grid. But when the renewable energy can't keep up, then the grid seamlessly comes into play, and not only helps the renewable energy, but helps charge the battery and runs the lighting loads in the building. So this building has about half a megawatt, 495 kW of solar on its roof. The newer panels are capable of 1,000 volts or more, so they're very efficient. And the building is in an east to west configuration that maximizes the battery storage over the whole day instead of facing south. Our wind turbines, as I mentioned, manufactured here in Pittsburgh using 100% recyclable products. They're steel and aluminum. Even the foundations, we don't use concrete normally. They're steel pilings. So at the end of their 30-plus year life cycle or more, these units are 100% recyclable. We're the only recyclable wind turbine on the market. Here you see the battery storage cabinet. This is a megawatt hour of lithium-ion storage battery. So this battery cabinet is self-contained. It has its own internal heating and cooling. It operates day and night in Cleveland. You've heard a little bit about the Texas renewable energy freezing. Well, I can tell you, we've been installing these for nearly 10 years now. We've never ever had a wind turbine or battery down due to weather, cold or hot. So a lot of what you're hearing out there is really based on them not being prepared for cold weather. But this battery itself can operate this facility completely off grid for up to 12 hours. It's called islanding, and if the facility, depending on how they use their lighting, they can really go indefinitely. So this is the renewable energy room that's at this facility. You can see some of the solar combiners and inverters and other equipment that we use to do this. Yeah, and what's interesting about what we do is the lighting is actually DC lighting. So all renewable energy begins as DC, not AC. direct current. And rather than just sending it to the grid, we operate high bay DC lighting, and lighting in the offices and terminals are all DC lighting, very efficient. So, this project, just as an example, will save about 421 tons of greenhouse gas emissions annually, and 42,969 gallons of gasoline equivalent consumed, and so on. So this is a significant project out here. It gives not only these green energy benefits of green energy to the customer, but it makes them extremely resilient to blackouts or brownouts. This facility has lost power. In the past year, it loses power at least once a month up in Cleveland, and it really stands out like an island. It stays lit. The business stays in operation, and this is the type of thing that you would like to see more of. And companies are becoming more and more interested in resilience of their energy power, especially when statewide grids go out like they did in Texas. This is just a quick example of a smaller scale microgrid that we do with the batteries, inverters, and both wind and solar. So a combination of wind and solar used here in a solar field also greatly enhances the solar, the output of this renewable energy array. And so that's it. I'm sorry I had to squeeze a lot in there in 8 minutes, but I'm going to bail out of the screen here, and I'd be happy to answer any questions later or whatever you guys like.
Thanks so much, Ron.
Yes.
That was great. Next, we're going to have a presentation by Mel Coliber on hydropower and his work with Rye Development. Mel has more than 40 years of experience in hydropower project development, including planning, feasibility studies, and licensing, design, construction, and operations at locations worldwide. The majority of Mel's professional experience has been with US-based consulting engineering firms. He's also worked with major hydroelectric turbine supplier as an applications engineer and project manager. Mel has served as a project engineer and project manager on several fossil fuel and nuclear plant developments in the United States and internationally. In Rye Development, Mel is primarily involved in major equipment system procurement, design, development, and review, and he works with the team to manage the technical review interface with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and others during the design and construction processes. Mel holds a BS in Civil and Environmental Engineering from the University of Colorado. Mel?
Thank you, Gina. Appreciate the introduction. So I'll just start by sharing my screen here.
Mel, your audio is a little bit funny. You want to try to start and stop your audio one more time?
Any better?
Unfortunately, that's not sounding better. It's sort of has a strange stuttery effect that wasn't there before. It may be worth having a hop off and hop back on again out of the Zoom meeting. Kelly, are you okay with us just, we could change to a different speaker, or we could just wait for Mel to come back in. I'm so sorry, Mel.
Going next, we can let Greg go and put Mel at the end, if you don't mind.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much, Mel. Sorry about that. We want to make sure everybody can hear you perfectly. Great.
So we'll move to Greg. Greg is Greg Winks from Solbridge Energy Advisors, has been active in promoting and developing the solar industry in Western Pennsylvania for a decade. Having previously worked in both the residential and large-scale solar sectors, he co-founded the independent solar consulting firm Solbridge Energy Advisors in 2017. The focus of Solbridge is to draw on the industry expertise of its partners to assist homeowners, business owners, and nonprofit decision makers looking to go solar. The focus throughout the process is on education, which can range from explaining the fundamentals of solar to technical and financial feasibility studies. Over their time in the industry, Solbridge Energy Advisors has developed a vast network of design-build companies and financing entities to help clients find the best solution to go solar. Greg?
Thank you, Gina. Yes, thank you, everyone, for organizing this and inviting me to participate. Appreciate the opportunity to speak. I always give the fundamental presentation, the fundamental slide here. Yes, solar is perfectly viable in Pennsylvania, really anywhere in the 50 states for the United States. It is a viable option. Before I get into a discussion on the solar industry and the employment sector within solar, I'm just going to give you a little background. Gina kind of gave an overview for what SolarBridge is all about. I'm not going to spend a whole lot more time on that. She did a good job as far as describing that, and you see it on the slides. We do a lot of independent consulting. Education for solar is a fundamental aspect for driving the growth throughout the region. And so we spend a lot of time on feasibility studies, determining technical, financial aspects, the viability of going solar for our clients, and then helping them through the process moving forward and finding a suitable contractor to do the installations. Briefly, I'll give you an overview of the state of solar nationwide and within Pennsylvania as well. It's has been a challenging past 12 months, as we can all imagine. Solar was progressing to have a record year this time last year, but as everything shut down mid-March, the pandemic shut down solar. So we took a pretty big step back, and we're hit pretty hard locally and nationally for about 3 months. When the restrictions loosened up and we're able to get back into business and get out in the field, we picked right back up. A lot of the installation companies, whether they were doing residential, commercial projects, or large-scale utility scale projects, already had a long queue of projects ready to go. So they just picked back up and commenced their installations. In the United States, we started out 2020 with roughly 250,000 people employed in solar. Pennsylvania, about 4,200. We don't have the latest numbers at the end of 2020. Those are usually released a little bit later than where we stand right now. Suffice it to say, we lost 50% in Pennsylvania and more than that nationwide for a brief time, but a vast majority of that has come back. We actually saw a great increase in the net result of generation capacity. 43% of all new electricity generation that was built in 2020 was through solar. In Allegheny County, leading county in Western Pennsylvania, we now have 2,400 solar installations. I'm going to get into now just more of the meat of what I'm going to talk about as far as the job sector. How do people get employed within solar? I'm going to discuss it through basically the phases of going solar. The very first step is sales. What opportunities are there in sales for solar? We have marketing representatives, sales professionals, independent consultants such as myself, varying levels of expertise and training that can be applied. When you get into the design and engineering aspect, you have independent consultants. Again, you have solar design experts with industry experience that are applied, starting out as laborers and working their way up through a company's roster to be experts on designs. You have electrical engineers that will be applied, civil engineers, people with computer, IT, programming, software backgrounds, people that can come with a background from cost estimators, very critical in obviously pricing out projects. You're seeing some of the slides here as I go through it of how solar can be applied. I go back to the one that we did here, nice ground-mounted installation on a local farm. People, once you get into a contract has been signed with a client and you move forward, You're looking at individuals that have expertise with municipalities or utilities in permitting. You can turn to people that have experience in logistics, materials procurement, warehouse management, all critical aspects on a smooth flow and managing your soft cost, your processing cost going through. Once you get out into the field on the project, you have a team of laborers, project manager, come from a variety of construction backgrounds, solar background, again, working up your way through the labor ladder. Electricians are typically on board, on site. A variety of labor experience could be involved here, whether it's roofers, carpenters as well, to help finish off a project. When you come to post-installation, you're going to need customer service representatives to deal with now an existing client that has a system. You turn to operations and maintenance, ongoing, especially in larger systems, cleaning the systems, inspecting the systems, make sure that they're operating at maximum capacity, making sure that detecting any kind of defective components throughout a system. Here again, electricians are very valuable in that. New technology now that's coming on board with drone operation, doing infrared inspection, having custom software to detect the efficiency and the performance of solar systems. And then finally, something that is becoming on more and more prevalent is, what do you do when a solar system has reached its life cycle's end? And that's where you turn to companies that have recycling capabilities. You need teams and managers to manage that process. Some of the secondary levels of industry support with doing solar and job market, carpenters, as I mentioned, roofers, not listed here, plumbers that could possibly be utilized in certain customized projects, finance experts, obviously putting together a financial package to make the project flow, counting, and then multiple engineering fields, structural, civil, environmental, mechanical could come into play. Listing just a note of some of the notable solar installation in the region that have applied the local workforce. Eaton Corporation has a sizable ground-mounted system in Vanport. Right now under construction is a larger solar installation at the International Airport, part of a microgrid project with natural gas production at the airport. IKEA, many people don't realize that IKEA has on top of their building in Robinson Township, pretty sizable solar installation. Then the most notable one in recent months is Mill 19 in Hazelwood, a very large system, the largest solar system on one contiguous roof surface in the country. Some notes on the total number of solar installations in some of the western Pennsylvania counties. This encompasses the volume, starts to reflect residential as well as commercial. Naturally, with the higher density of population, Allegheny County is going to have more numbers of installations. Like I said, residential will lead the way. Beaver County is second on that. Butler, and then Washington County. Then the types of jobs that are involved vary, and the number of people vary depending on the scope. You could have a team of roughly 6 individuals, including a project manager and an electrician, for out in the field for a residential, and that could go into the dozens of people on a project such as the airport project, and that's not including the back office, the design, the engineering work, the initial sales and consulting aspect that goes into the permitting of this. information on the jobs, I touched on it briefly in the state of Pennsylvania, compared to Ohio, New York, New Jersey, our surrounding states. We kind of fall behind. We're not really where we want to be as far as the amount of jobs and the amount of solar opportunity projects in the state. And really what that is the direct factor of two things, really. In Western Pennsylvania, we have our default cost of electricity is relatively comparatively low. So when it comes to penciling out from a financial perspective, sometimes, not always, but sometimes it can be a little tough. The biggest thing that drives the growth of solar in various states and regions is state policy. And Pennsylvania is really behind in supporting the growth of solar compared to especially New York and New Jersey. So we really do need some action on the state policy level to help drive more opportunity. Certainly more jobs follow. And that's it for a quick synopsis. I appreciate it very much.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Greg. Thank you for that. And I can attest to the very many different kinds of jobs that you can have in solar. I'm sure we'll talk more about this, but I was employed as a journalist in solar for 10 years. So really they're just any kind of job that you can have in any other field, you need to have in renewable energy fields as well. We'll go ahead and move back to Mel. If you're ready now, Mel, go ahead and try again. Look forward to
let's try again. How's the sound?
Sounds great. Yeah, that's great.
It sounds great. It's fixed. Great. Thank you so much, Mel. Go for it.
Super. All right. Thanks, Gina. Again, I appreciate the introduction. I'm with Ride Development. We're a private developer of hydropower projects in the U.S. I will jump right into the slides here. We develop hydropower projects at existing dams, primarily across the U.S. And this is a graphic of the location of our projects. We have approximately 22 projects in the eastern United States, all of those located at existing dams or locks and dams on the river systems in the eastern U.S. We do have 2 large pump storage projects in the Northwest. That's a different subject for a different day. In the Pittsburgh area, we have approximately 10 projects, 8 in Pennsylvania and 2 in West Virginia, and I'll focus on those today. The reason we're in this business is because there is a lot of potential for hydropower in the U.S. This is a map that the Department of Energy puts out every couple of years that estimates the untapped potential just at existing dams in the United States with potential installed capacity greater than about 1 megawatt. And as you can see in our region of the country, there is a reasonable amount of uninstalled potential. There exists a lot on the upper Mississippi as well and on the lower Ohio, but our region of the country has a lot of potential. And when you look at what is developed as far as the currently operating projects, there's a lot of opportunity to take advantage of the hydropower potential at existing dams particularly. Just a little bit of context. The 10 projects that we have slated in the Pittsburgh region will generate about, or will have an output of about 150 megawatts. The average home in Pennsylvania, the usage is noted there on the slide. 50% of that is heating costs. And so based on those statistics, which I think are from a recent year, the 10 projects in the Pittsburgh area will serve about 75,000 homes. So with those 10 projects, our impacts are significant. A large number of high-paid construction jobs over the development period. Each of our projects takes about 18 months to build, and we'll do them in sequenced bundles. So we think this is a 5 to 8 year program. We're going to source a lot of materials locally on the order of $500 million. We have a significant CO2 annual offset as well as other greenhouse gas offsets when the generation is all up and running. And all of these projects are at existing infrastructure. The dams exist. They've been there in some cases for a long time. And we don't have to build any new dams or dam any rivers to do this work. And like I said, about 75,000 homes would be served from the output from our plants. This is a rendering of the Emsworth project. The large land area in the middle there is Neville Island near Pittsburgh, downstream from Pittsburgh. The Locken Dam is Emsworth Locken Dam. On the main channel, there's also a dam on the back channel. And right in the middle of the photo there, you can see the location of our hydro plant. It's very unobtrusive. It's built in the river. We don't do any excavation on the banks. Usually we site our projects opposite the lock so that we're not interfering with the Corps of Engineers operation. And the overall impact is minimal. For that project that you saw the rendering of, the energy output from that is being sold on a long-term contract to Allegheny County. There's been some recent press about that in the Pittsburgh area. Like I said, we'll have about an 18-month construction period, and over that time, we estimate on the order of 250 jobs. Those will all be high-skilled, high-paid jobs. This is an example of the type of folks that'll be involved in our projects. There'll be a lot more. These may be union members, maybe not. Depends on the contractor that we have on board. But this is for one project. We'll have 10 over time, so the impact is significant. Also for Allegheny County, the same project, we're having an impact now. Even before we start construction, we had some major steel parts fabricated by a local fabricator out by the airport, actually, Littell Steel, and it was a significant contract for them with a lot of labor hours involved. And we're currently have surveyors and geotechnical exploration firms and others working on some labor contracts to get us ready for engineering and construction. And then for the three first projects that we're going to do, we have about a $7 million contract for engineering labor. A lot of that will be done in the local Pittsburgh area. Long-term impact for each of our projects, where we estimate on the order of 10 full-time equivalent jobs, and that relates to the operations. There's maintenance inside, there's maintenance outside. And so once we get all of our projects in place, there will be a significant impact on jobs. And the primary impact is renewable low-cost energy. And I think our contracts are 30 or 40-year durations. These plants typically last for 50 plus years. So the benefits are ongoing and significant. This is a rendering of a project near in Morgantown, West Virginia. Actually, we've talked to the local university there as well as others about being an off-taker for the project. Again, they're relatively low impact, blend into the existing structure nicely, and take advantage of energy that's otherwise unused. So that's my presentation, Gina. Thanks.
Thanks, Mel. Great. Thank you so much. And thanks for the nice conversation going on in the chat there too. We're going to move into some general Q&A. And the model for these panel discussions has been that we try to pose some questions to all of the panelists at this time, and leaving for some robust discussion in the breakouts with individual panelists and questions specific to individuals. So we'll check the chat for, please put any questions that you have there in the chat. We'd like to have a really nice, engaging conversation. I will start with a softball for our three panelists. They want to join me here on the screen, and we'll have a conversation. But I think that probably one question people have is, what advice do you have for someone seeking to build a career in the renewable energy sector?
What advice do you say?
Yep. What would you tell people, especially young people who are looking to get into this field and people are changing careers at this time or bringing some skills like I did?
Yeah, from a solar perspective, as I illustrated, there's a wide variety of potential ways that you can get into the industry. The question was asked as to what kind of salary range do you have? It is really broad based. It's hard to kind of set specifics on that because it depends on what's your background. Did you go to college and you have an engineering degree? Do you have a labor background? As your case, do you have a journalistic skill to it? There has been some attempts in the past to have specific, and I know there are national programs if you want to get into the technical knowledge of really advancing an installation crew. There are national programs for training that will take you to a level beyond just being a laborer, where you can climb up the ladder to learn technical design aspects and go beyond that. So there's it's hard to say one career pathway, but you take advantage. I think in a lot of cases in today's society, you take advantage of your life's experience and see how you can apply it.
Yeah, so I think for the hydro industry, in the near term, there's a lot of opportunity on the construction side. All of those skills are going to be necessary for these projects as well as others that we expect to be developed around the country. For the operations and engineering side, just a background in engineering and/or technology in a broad sense, I think would be a good way to be involved in the industry. There are a lot of consulting engineers that work on these kind of projects, the operation and maintenance folks as well with a background in technology, I think are going to have a significant opportunity.
Yeah, and if I could add from the manufacturing perspective, luckily, Pittsburgh has a fairly robust manufacturing base still. So skilled welders and skilled shop personnel are something that we're always looking for, and our subcontractors are. And we found that to be a little more challenging than it was a few years ago, because as the oil and gas industry was ramping up, so were our local manufacturers. So it turned out they had a lot of excess capacity after the gas industry kind of tanked a few years ago. And so those skilled machine shop positions are there's a lot of them out there that are unfilled. So that's a skill I'd like to see some people focus on. And then I'd just like to add, Gino, to what you said, and Greg and Mel, renewable energy, both the support side, the service side, and the downstream side, these are all skills that are used in other trades. So construction, concrete work, plumbing, roofing, these are all, it's easier to find those skills than, like, let's say, a solar installer per se. Some of the big projects that we've seen here, we've because Pennsylvania, as Greg already mentioned, isn't known for its solar. Frankly, we're way down in the bottom 50 states in our solar uptake. It's been pretty not real solar friendly, and the lack of state incentives doesn't help, nor does the cheap utility prices. However, that all said, so what you see is a bunch of smaller solar installers, 4-man, 6-man companies, around the state that you don't see a whole bunch of huge solar installers. In fact, we just got a bid on a project from a company that sent solar installers in from Indiana State, who had crews of 36 or more on a big project. So Pennsylvania is a long way to go, but that's great because there's a lot, opportunity. And if we can just kind of get the policy right and get the incentives right, I think you're going to have more opportunities in the future.
Yeah, I think we can agree to that. And in fact, I think one of the things that all of us can be doing is supporting more robust renewable energy policies here in Pennsylvania. I can remember a dozen years ago, 15 years ago, perhaps, when Pennsylvania was one of the top 10 leaders in solar in the United States. And that was lost because of unfavorable policies.
That's right. Yeah, that was a shame.
Yeah.
You're right. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when we were one of the leading states that set a renewable portfolio standard. But the standards and the requirements that were set at that time that led to an initial growth spurt have not been adjusted at all since then. And we now see states that like New York and New Jersey, a tiny state like New Jersey or Massachusetts, are both rank in the top 5 in the whole country in the amount of solar installed. And it's directly involved, related to policy that drives it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. We do have some questions coming in on the chat if we want to turn some of our attention to that. Scrolling up. There's a question about geothermal. I don't think any of you are involved in geothermal, if I'm correct there. No. Clifford has asked, do the hydro projects exist as microgrids, or do they supplement the larger grid or a larger grid?
Well, I think both. We generally tie into the larger grid, although we have talked to several customers about a direct tie to their facility. The University of West Virginia, for example, they have a grid, I think, that's managed by them or somebody similar, and we might tie directly into their supply grid. There are some other facilities that have looked at our projects, especially the smaller ones, as a source of energy specifically for their either manufacturing facility or something similar. There's a development right next to our Allegheny 2 project that's in the works, as I understand it, and they're talking about a microgrid there to support the residential, commercial, and light industrial new development that they'll have on that site.
I imagine this question of trying to green the electrons at the company that's the off-taker comes up a lot with Greg and Ron too, if you wanted to speak to that before we move on. Oh, you're on mute, Ron. And
sorry, Gina, I missed that. What was that?
Just if either you or Greg wanted to comment on this question of projects that an off-taker invests in, a large project that someone might invest in and look to it being part of a microgrid versus going out into the larger grid.
Yeah, I can jump in on that. So that's a complex question. That's there's an entire industry based on trading SRECs and renewable energy credits, et cetera. So they're the incentives again in Pennsylvania are not great for developers because it just like building a building on spec, the market has to be right for that. It's the same with solar in wind in Pennsylvania, and again, it's just we're surrounded by other states who are more friendly to that type of development.
Okay, and I think it was you, Ron. The next question is from Kate, who asks, and I'm inviting anybody to comment on this, but I think it was Ron who was touching on this question of, do you see people moving from natural gas jobs here to renewable in your respective, areas of renewable energy, or are people mostly coming from other industries?
Yeah. So we do work side by side in our. We have about a network of 5 or 6. Kind of specialty machine shops, another good example. So our wind turbine components will be being fabricated side by side with the gas industry components and compressors. And so there's a lot of cross, kind of pollination between the industries already in these in the manufacturing process. And that's really also the same with even the contractors. We when we do something called piling foundations, they're helical pile steel foundations. Those are used extensively in the oil and gas industry. So we actually hire crews out of the gas industry for installation if jobs are too big for us to handle internally. So we're already seeing quite a bit of that. Yeah, so that's, I can say we also have seen some people out of West Virginia in the coal industry that, just from a resume perspective and the interest that we're getting in clean energy, I think, that's encouraging that we are seeing some interest from the extractive industries.
And I would add to that, from a fundamental sales and marketing perspective to engineering backgrounds, we do tap into similar personnel. From a labor perspective, it's not a case of, for solar right now, it's a case really where do we have enough of a market built up? For companies, there's just a handful of solar companies that are based out of this region that can offer steady, rapid growth employment. It's like it's repeating the comment here, we're still just kind of lacking on the ability to do that. Ron mentioned that there are a number of mid-Atlantic sales and marketing companies that have installation crews that come in from out of state to do a quick job and then move on. But to offer the fossil fuel industry a steady pathway right now, it's been a challenge for the solar industry to be able to wave a flag. Here it is.
Just because of the market. And so maybe Deb's question, Deb Smith, circles back to this question about the market, which is so much at the basis of the entire jobs discussion. What can we do to convince our elected leaders to support renewable energy and especially subsidies for renewables?
I think the first thing right now is we have new legislators are now in Harrisburg, and it's all on the state level. We have a pretty nice federal policy in place already with the tax credit, and the president might be leading his own agenda for renewable energy, but we need to reach out to our state legislators and have educated discussions with them. It's not a matter of putting one industry sector out of business and replacing it with another. It's a matter of progressing through the technological developments and society and where we move forward with job opportunities and careers. So it's a reaching out and educating our legislators, and that word educating, the general population lacks of it, and it's sorely lacked in Harrisburg as far as them understanding that this is a job opportunity.
Right. Keeping with this conversation, do you have, let's see, Heather asks, do you have any interaction with trade schools? And maybe that's, if you want to answer that.
Yeah. So Heather, we've actually worked with a couple of VOTEC schools, even prior to the trade schools. So at the high school level, we have one out in Latrobe. We just got a new project out in, it's called Butler VOTEC. It's actually in near Cincinnati. And we come in and we have, these schools actually have our either wind turbines or solar panels or weather stations. And we help them develop curriculum for their students around sustainability. And, we have high hopes for that. That's one of those things where we started a number of years ago, and we've had some interest in interns that have come out of that kind of career track. So, that's about the extent of what we're doing there, specifically for renewable energy.
Our first customer for our projects is University of Pittsburgh, and at the Allegheny 2 project, we are building a education center along with that project where the engineers and environmental science folks and others can actually go to the project and have a class or do their studies or get involved in the actual operation of the plant as well as the effect on the environment and how that's measured and characterized. So we're involved with them in that way.
Thanks. Greg has nothing to add. Moving to some other questions. And getting back to the policy question, we have someone who's commenting on the climate imperative, Jermaine. And I think that we can all heartily get behind that. And hopefully that will be a factor in the new administration making a difference here. I have a question from Karen. Can federal supports back funding for all schools, all public buildings, and government offices be mandated to switch to some form of renewable energy? This sort of reminds me of when there was a whole lot of investment dollars put in place by the government after the 2008 crisis, and the GSA in the federal government did do a lot of work to advance solar and other efficiencies and clean energy. Does anybody want to respond to this question about the prospects for that kind of movement now?
I think it might be tough to see a federal mandate, but to see incentives from the federal side could be, it is definitely a pathway. It's already somewhat of a pathway that exists. In fact, quite frankly, from the solar perspective, it is the most viable incentive right now is the federal tax credit for solar. On a state level, I'm always circling back to the states here. California has already enacted mandates, and if it's not statewide, it's certainly through certain cities. San Francisco, I think, was the first one that mandates that all new construction, I believe, above a certain number of stories or square footage, must have solar energy.
That's right.
Be tied to solar energy. So it's probably going to be seen more on a state level than on a federal level.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've seen an interesting push out of the Department of Defense for renewable energy in the past 4 or 5 years. As I mentioned, we did a project for the Navy. That's a big issue with them, particularly in some of their forward operating bases and around the world. They energy efficiency actually it saves lives in an active kind of combat theater. So the price of getting fuel to a base anywhere, things like that. So we've seen some interesting projects funded out of DoD, Department of Energy, prior to the last administration. Hopefully that'll come back online as well, and DARPA and other things in energy. So I'd watch out for that.
Yeah, especially as we know that the administration is now looking for climate to be taken into consideration in every facet of the government operations. So, especially as climate is, who knows? We may see that sooner than we think. Karen asked the additional question of, as we see people, coming out of the military, do you have any thought to have training options on military bases to involve training these soon to be discharged people for this work?
Yeah, that's an interesting approach. I hadn't thought of that. Winstacks was lucky enough last year to win the Hire Vets Gold Award at the national level for our number of veterans that we hire. So that's something that we always look for, and but I would never really thought of training prior to the discharge. But that's a great idea. And as I mentioned, with DoD being more and more conscious of renewable energy and sustainability, I think that's something that we probably will see some individuals coming out with some of that background already.
Yeah, and I think from a military perspective, you've seen solar applications throughout the world on not only military bases but on mobile applications. It's if it's something that can be transported and set up in a mobile capacity, it helps with their mobility of their forces, and certainly reducing their cost and operations, their logistics. I would think a natural byproduct of that would be the technical expertise that comes from the personnel learning how to apply that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Got another training related question from Ryan Smith. Are there any grants for universities or local businesses to support green energy technology that you all might elaborate on?
Grants. I don't specifically know about any. However, I can say, just from our experience with the University of Pittsburgh, Chatham University, and Penn State, they all have very solid sustainable energy programs that we see people coming out of sometimes with joint degrees. In fact, our latest hire was a Penn State electrical engineer with a major in sustainable energy, sustainability also. So, but specific grants, I don't know. I think I think the universities themselves need to commit to that, to those as a career track, and we have seen some of them do that.
The state of Pennsylvania has a fairly extensive and robust grant program for energy and in general renewable energy and related projects for any kind of business, including universities and public sector entities. They were a little sidetracked this year with the virus situation and the logistics of making things work, but I believe they're ramping back up to make significant funds available to folks who want to do these kind of projects, especially in the public sector.
Mel, I'm glad you spoke up. You're cutting out again, so I wonder if it would help just to turn on and off your sound to see if that'll help when you speak again. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I'd recommend, Mel, just hopping off the call and hopping back on. I'll let you right back in. That I don't know that
Thanks.
Sorry. We'll see Mel in a second. Someone else Karen made the point that it's really important that we help train the world on this technology and these jobs too. Vitally, critically important, of course. Kelly asks, there are often a lot of upfront costs associated with switching to renewables. Can you speak to how we can make renewable options accessible to all people and businesses, not just the affluent or those groups with excess capital?
All right, so I'm going to harp on it again. It's policy in the state. It really, community solar is an extremely valuable tool that is utilized throughout other states in the country that will allow individuals, lower income individuals, people that live in rent, live in townhomes. It's not designed. It's designed to assist, make it more accessible for the vast majority of the population center, where someone can subscribe to a solar farm and reap the benefits from the energy production that's generated from that solar farm. Unfortunately, right now, the state of Pennsylvania does not allow for, and I happen to live in a townhouse. So I've been fighting my homeowners association for half a dozen years now to try to get solar allowed. And, so I would be one of those people that would benefit from that, being able to subscribe to a community solar project.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, it is. You're correct. Kelly, it does cost upfront capital for the most part to go renewable energy, although some states and jurisdictions do permit, you essentially leasing your roof at for no cost to a solar provider. It's a interesting business model. Some like it, some don't. But the one thing you certainly can do if you're interested in taking a baby step with renewable energy is chances are, your provider, your current utility provider, will give you the option to select renewable energy as part of your portfolio of energy providers at your home. It's really easy to do. And some of them, depending again on your utility company and where you're located, may give you even the option between community solar and wind energy, really without spending any capital up front. It just with your bill. So that's a good first start. And that's the kind of thing, if we see consumers driving that demand from a developer's perspective, one of the earlier questions was, what about investing in power purchase agreements and large solar fields? The more developers see demand from people, the more attractive the market becomes.
Thank you. We're going to move to breakouts pretty soon, but I'd like to ask one more question about equity. So Sustainable Pittsburgh is very focused on trying to bring this coming boom market to underserved communities and people who maybe it's an entrepreneurial opportunity, it's not just a job opportunity. Interested in how equity and diversity considerations are playing out in your organizations. Ron already mentioned that he's hiring a lot of veterans. Are there other things that you're thinking about in terms of supplier diversity, projects you engage in, any equity considerations as you are building your businesses?
Well, SoulBridge Energy Advisors, we're a small consulting firm, just a two-man consulting firm. But what we do, as a result of our business model, we work with a number of design and installation companies, and it's becoming more and more prevalent in the messaging too with our clients, especially on the commercial end. That's who we typically represent, is the decision makers and the consumers that are going solar. We're working with a couple of retail companies right now that are stressing in their business model that they would like to see their supply chain be diversified in their workforce. And it's starting to, I think the message and the trickle down employment effect is going to spread throughout the solar industry as it grows.
The local subcontractors that we're using in Pittsburgh right now are minority and or women-owned businesses. We try to focus on that if we can. Our customers encourage that, as Greg said. So that's something that we're focusing on. The right team itself is pretty small, but we're a diverse group, and I think as we go forward and grow, that's one of our objectives as well.
You have nothing else to add, Ron?
No, it's not really.
Okay, that's okay. That's fine. Before we move in the breakout, I wanted to give Mel the opportunity. It was a little hard to understand which organization you were talking about was offering grants. Do you mind sharing that? Oh, and now you're on mute. Sorry.
Sorry about that. I'll get the hang of this. The Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development has a grant program, and there's a DCED's electronic single application, and that is available on their website, and that covers a lot of different programs. Rye Development looked into applying for grants through that program at one time, and then the virus situation hit. But they have funded a remarkably large number of projects across the state. So the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development, you should be able to find their website.
Thank you. Thank you for repeating that. So I want to thank you all for being such great panelists. It's been such a really interesting, engaging conversation. And thanks all to everybody who put questions in the chat. We are going to move into breakout rooms now. Again, one with each of these presenters. So if there's a topic that you're particularly interested in, please find your way to that. In a minute, you should see a pop-up appear on your screen giving you the option to choose a room focused on wind, solar, or hydro. If you don't see that pop-up, hang tight. Mark will check with you to see which room you want to be placed in. During the breakouts, you'll have the chance to have more informal conversations and do some networking with our speakers on topics that interest you. We'll come back in 40 minutes to close things out. And if you want to join another breakout room or you need anything, you can leave the breakout, come back to the main room, and Mark can reassign you or help you. And I'll leave it to Mark then. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, everybody. Thanks very much to our presenters and to everyone who's still here for the great conversations. Learned lots tonight and just so much passion and enthusiasm. It's great to see things moving in this direction in our state. I hope that you all had the opportunity to further engage in conversations around regional economic development and job opportunities in renewable. And as a reminder, you can check out reimaginejobs.org for more opportunities. And if you're with an organization, you can consider becoming an exhibitor on the site. You can do that by clicking on the Become an Exhibitor portion of the homepage of the site. Just a final reminder, tonight's program is part of a series of monthly programs diving deeper into 9 sectors of sustainable economic development. To stay up to date on these upcoming programs, you can Reimagine Beaver County on Facebook. The next event for Reimagine Jobs will be on March 24th, and that one will focus on regenerative agriculture. We hope to see you there. With that, thanks again for joining us tonight. It was great to see all of your faces.